So, I heaped a lot of praise on 10 amazing pieces of software in my Game of the Year video. But how can one confidently say a game is truly good if there's nothing to compare it to? So, I humbly present to you stuff that sucks. Disclaimer, I don't even have 10 games in this list because I usually don't put much time into things I hate. Therefore, disclaimer number 2, I'm not going to be spending a whole bunch of time burying these things as a result. Just trust me, there are not things that are good. So, without further ado... As an obvious fan of beat-em-ups, I really wanted to like Raging Justice, a game made by former Rare employees with the goal to bring back that old 90s button-bashing feel. It's in this list, sadly, because it's so disappointing and clunky in a lot of areas that could have been fixed or remedied somehow. You have 3 weird characters that are awkwardly modeled, looking more like they're from some cancelled high-res Clay Fighter sequel. The animation is too detailed and simultaneously not detailed enough, with some attacks having way too much animation and others having way too few. And most egregious of all, the music is really bland and forgettable, a sin of the highest magnitudes when you are squarely in the same space as Streets of Rage, Final Fight, or Double Dragon. Now, I can get past all that, but unfortunately the biggest offender for Raging Justice is its gameplay. It's bogged down by a lot of unnecessary, unpolished stuff that makes playing it a befuddling experience. First off, there's a grab button. Red flags are waving already. Now, if you've grabbed an enemy, you then need to press the grab button again to throw them. Okay, but you also have to use the grab button to pick items off the ground. Pressing the grab button in this situation now results in only just dropping the weapon on the floor. You need to press the kick button to throw it. If you are sandwiched between enemies and there's shitloads of weapons and items on the floor, well, I mean, just look. Dashing results in this weird Street Fighter-like super move that kind of has cooldown between uses, but it's also invincible, and then there's a Mega Crush move that drains way too much health every time you use it. There's also 0 options for control customization, which again, I can't fathom why. So since the controls don't feel cohesive at all and there's no way to change them, it just makes the whole game feel like a complete mess to play, and it just never clicks because of it. It's a shame, because deep down you can feel the love for the genre somewhere in Raging Justice, but it's hard for that love to surface when it's being overshadowed by sloppy and unfocused design. Also, this might be the oddest character I've ever seen. I'm so uncomfortable around them. Yeah, it's really sad to say, but even if you are a die-hard fan of brawlers, this is the type of justice you should steer clear of. Okay, gonna be real. This is a bad Chinese knockoff of Gears of War 1 in 2018. In fact, I think it might even run on the exact same engine as the original Gears, but it just doesn't even run nearly as well. That being said, Gene Rain might be something worth experiencing because it's so batshit banana bollocks insane in its story and presentation that it's almost charming.
They have no feelings like dried bone beneath the ground.
Now, yes, it's made in a country where English is not the first language. I understand that. But the fact they had dozens of people look at a cutscene like this...
I really don't know what's the value of life like me.
But I can slaughter anyone with you as I want.
And then go, yeah, that's good, ship it. It's just mind-boggling to me. You control someone, or something, I'm not sure, and you have to stop the Gene Rain from happening, and then you either go into slow and awkward investigation scenes, or you control fast and awkward combat scenes. Now, I kinda guess that the Gears shooting sections are kinda serviceable, I guess, but we have moved so far past the waist-high cover thing, and in terms of gameplay, that's it. That's all it really has. Nothing. There doesn't seem to be any sort of hook or unique gameplay feature to help Gene Rain stand out, or even really justify its existence. The game is ugly, not well optimized, confusing, dated, and unfun to play. However, there are some lines in the script that defy so many rules of logic and writing that it gives the room a run for its money.
What do you do with these memories?
Katakaku.
That's just, I want that as an epitaph on my gravestone. Gene Rain is now available for the Xbox One, PS4, and Steam, but just watch the cutscenes on YouTube instead and take a rain check on actually playing it. So, as most of you know, I've experienced The Quiet Man twice, but I don't remember why. Anyway, when it was first announced, I was like, And then months later, when I saw the first bit of gameplay footage that was buried in a Japanese Square Enix livestream that wasn't even publicized, I was like, So, from the mysterious, informationless E3 reveal up until the game launched, The Quiet Man was destined for failure.
Me lo pelas.
And fail it did. What we have here is a cinematic brawler, intercut between not very good actors reciting not very good lines. Well, the first time you beat the game, you don't know they're not good actors, because for those that aren't aware, The Quiet Man has almost zero spoken dialogue. It's kind of just really muffled and there's no subtitles. Despite this, instead of maybe editing down these live-action cutscenes for the soundless run, we have to just sit there and watch actors act out those silent lines. This is called anti-content, people, and can get so incredibly grating. What's more, there's scenes where the Quiet Man, Dane, is not even present, so the narrative function of him not being able to hear the dialogue doesn't even make sense anymore. But they can't just have had 1 or 2 scenes with the dialogue, so let's just get rid of all of it. Oh man, what were they thinking? So, after about 3.5 hours of uninspired, stiff, janky combat against the same enemies over and over in the same locations over and over, you unlock the ability to replay the game with dialogue. Yay! Oh wait, the story is more generic than anything you could have ever imagined. Boo! And it's not even bad in the fun Gene Rain way. It's bad in the boring and tepid Quiet Man way. I do feel there was a nugget of a good idea in here somewhere, but every single component of the game fails to support that idea. And despite the graphics looking fairly nice, they at least knew what they had here and priced it appropriately. It was $19.99 when it launched, and is probably like $3.99 on Steam by the time you watch this. Oh, wait. That's awful. Do yourself a favor, if this game is in your online shopping cart right now, heed my words, be sensible, and quietly remove it. All I wanted was a Senran Kagura game I could play on the small screen, so no one could see me. And since I haven't even found my Vita in like 2.5 years, I was looking forward to the Switch version. But instead of a pretty decent, if simple action title, we got a mindlessly repetitive visual novel with some erotic HD rumble action thrown in for good measure. When I was about to boot up Reflections, I thought I would at least get a kick out of it. And I did for the first 10 minutes, but when you realize that 10 minutes is basically repeated endlessly until the end of the game, it doesn't matter how many skimpy costumes, blushing cheeks, and pervy Mickey Mouse hands there are. It's not gonna get any more interesting or engaging. Well, that, for me at least. Some of you out there, I'm sure, are really into the SK franchise, and you might actually really enjoy Reflections, and that's fine. But I don't know, bouncing booby woobies is silly and fun when there's an actual game wrapped around those soft valleys. But when it's literally the only thing that's on offer, it gets real old. But okay, let's look at this from another angle. Of the 7,000 Senran Kagura characters, this game has 5, with 4 of them being DLC, so if you're into this girl, or that girl, or the only girl that actually matters, you're fresh out of luck. So for the average fan of this series, why get this game when it's most likely missing the pair of breasts with a wig that you most enjoy? And why they decided to do this to the roster is just beyond me. I guess it would have been too much work to get all the girls in there and record all their dialogue, but I guess that's why this game is like $10. It was made cheaply so it could be sold cheaply. It's just like they ripped out the between-level mini-game from another SK title and thought they could just sell that. Bad look, Marvelous. Maybe you guys should have flexed your minds a bit more and released a well-rounded game instead. Ugh, the Impatient. That is one not of revulsion or hatred, but one of pure 100% disappointment. Until Dawn is one of my favorite horror games of this generation, and to see it slip into this dreary quagmire of unneeded spin-offs instead of getting a proper sequel breaks my little Machu heart. However, in contrast to Rush of Blood, which was a good bit of fun, The Impatient is simply an exercise in frustration and wonder. Wonder in how Supermassive wound up making such a limp, pointless, and bland prequel to the original game's story. At its core, The Impatient is a walking simulator you can beat in pretty much like an hour. You can then select a different character and make different choices in a second run, but when the game is bereft of new ideas or anything that sets it apart from the literal dozens of FPS horror games on VR, that becomes less enticing. The idea of a prequel set in the 50s, which tells the story of how the Wendigo curse came to be, seems like a decent enough idea on theory paper, but in reality practice, what's been done here is way less interesting. You'd think a natural place to go would be to play as one of the original miners as you explore spooky caves on the mountain and bumble into the curse that way. But instead, you play as a nondescript character researching that mining incident and through various story circumstances get committed to an insane asylum. You then proceed to just look at items, have tedious conversations with your cellmate and the staff, and get to wander the nightmarish hallways of the asylum, always in dream sequences. Now, of course, since these scenarios are established early on as dreams, or at least hallucinations, it kinda sorta totally sucks all of the tension out of them, doesn't it? Speaking of no tension, the game just kind of moves along like this, with the same cycle over and over until it's just time for the finale. An agonizingly slow march through the asylum, dodging a few Wendigos, until the game just tallies up your choices and gives you an ending. The sequence is just baffling to me, as there are also long stretches of time where seemingly nothing happens. No dialogue, no enemies, no scares, you're just walking to the exit. Another problem is that The Impatient is so brief you are not given a whole lot of time to give a shit about a whole lot of anyone, an issue the original Until Dawn didn't have. That cast of characters had distinct, if not cliched personalities, players got attached to them and everyone had their favorites. The Impatient? I like that nurse we knew for like 8 minutes.
Mr. Bragg, you've been down before. You'll pull us all through, I know you will.
Everything here is a massive disappointment on pretty much every level, and a total misunderstanding of what made the first game so great. I really hope Supermassive blows us away with the Man of Medan, because I don't have the patience to be let down by them again. You know, it speaks volumes when Dantes Inferno is a more effective video game based around hell than Agony, a title I was looking forward to ever since it was first announced. Bit of inside baseball for all you out there. A few months before the game finally released, after its 6th or 7th or 13th delay, I got to play a demo and had the intention to put the video up as a Matt's Nightmares. But what happened? Well, I can answer that by saying I hated the demo so much I just didn't bother to put it up. I also then realized it was of a pretty old build and didn't want to dump on it until the completed game was finished. Hey, they, might make a bunch of improvements. They buncha didn't. Agony is a confusing, confounding catastrophe that talks a big game, it's beautifully horrid and sometimes stunning art direction visuals, but eats shit super hard once you start, playing it or thinking about it. Its map design and, in inverted commas, stealth gameplay is fundamentally broken. Its penalty for death is unfun and tedious, and pretty much at all times you're never exactly sure what to do. Yes, I have to find the red goddess, okay? You then meet other random chumps in hell, and they just start going on and on about themselves. It's just...
For sure, I know you.
Uh-huh.
Where's your goddess?
Yeah?
Have you found her yet?
And you're just looking around going, oh god, get me out of here, oh god, please stop. It feels like there was a missing prologue or story sequence to give all of this some context, or you were playing a sequel to another game that never actually came out. Regardless of all that, even if you had properly defined motivations or backstory, it's not going to help you against enemies that can one-shot you, traps you can't see, nonsensical puzzles, and unclear level design. I suppose if they wanted to make a game that did indeed feel like being in hell, they sort of succeeded because misery is the prevailing emotion here. If this version of hell, Agony's version, was at least filled with those hot-ass Betty Page looking demons with the boots and the tails, and maybe I could forgive it? No! Not today, Satan! No! It's a cool idea, and I would like to see it one day realized. A slow burn adventure through hell. And, it'd be nice if it could be done well. But, for now, spare yourself the agony, and don't play Agony. Okay, so for all of you wondering what the fuck is Warrior Fighter, let me show you. Yeah. Oh, soak that in. Oh, he's in his head. Look at that read. Yeah. For reals though, this might be one of the worst Steam games I've ever played, and certainly the worst fighting game I've gone hands-on with in a long, long time. Problem is, the screenshots made it look like a fun, cheesy sort of thing that might be goofy and unbalanced, but still provides some entertainment, like Sango Fighter New Generation, Pillow Fighter, or Cruise Brothers, but no. So we're gonna look at a bit more gameplay, and while we do that, I have to urge you, please fight the feelings that you might have to purchase any of these warriors. Even it's not even good for a laugh. Oh wait, you can't purchase it. It's been removed from Steam now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The Impatient can be tedious and a bit boring, but it's brief. Quiet Man has monotonous gameplay, but there's a good idea buried in there somewhere. Gene Rain is clunky and unpolished, but, has a hilarious script. But if you want to play something that's all of those things, long, monotonous, unoriginal, and unfunny, well, then Shaq Fu is for you.
Those kids just jealous because you such big boy. I mean, your turds must be bigger than their heads. Your feet must be the size of...
I get the point.
Now, to preface things, I always thought the original fighting game this was supposedly going to be a sequel to was never as bad as people said. It's not a great game, that's for sure, but it's better than, say, Warrior Fighter. Anyway, I bring up Shaq's first foray into video games because this crowd-funded follow-up is a much bigger failure by every quantifiable metric and is far more deserving of that ridicule. Yeah, if you remember, this had an Indiegogo and raised over $400,000 and was kinda built on a lot of massive lies. It was gonna be a fighting game kind of thing. It was gonna look like this. It was gonna have online competitive modes. There was gonna be a contest to fight Shaq in real life, and then the winner got a cash prize.
So you couldn't even see it.
Look this stuff up. The developers or the, people in charge just straight up spouted untruths about it to try and sell people on the concept. But why? The original Fu never turned a corner and became some misunderstood cult hit over the years. People still hate the original game, justified or not. So what type of madman pitch is this? That's like going, we need to crowdfund a Bubsby 3D sequel now. I'm telling you, people are starting to come around.
No matter. I'll twerk you into next month.
Now, when you get to brass tacks, let's just break it down. Shaq Fu is an incredibly basic, dull, outdated, cringy beat-em-up that I struggle to think of any redeeming qualities for. I'm being serious. I mean, I guess when I first saw the icy hot message appear on screen, I grimaced. That's kind of a reaction. But when you have basic mechanics like full 3D analog movement, but you can only attack on a strict 2D plane, it makes the basic moment-to-moment gameplay awkward from start to finish. The levels are these never-ending conveyor belts of annoying enemies, and just when you assume you've beaten the boss and you'll see something different, the level, well, it's still going, okay? Speaking of those bosses, they're all references to celebrities that might elicit a chuckle from your mom or dad if this had come out 6 years ago. But now it's just like, who is this for? Well, certainly not people who are currently alive in 2018 or their friends if they try to force them to play co-op. I bring that up because it's impossible. Despite all the campaign promises and the fact, it's a beat 'em up, there's absolutely no multiplayer options in this at all. I believe this launched at $30, which, not to sound dramatic, is the video game equivalent of a war crime. If Shaq Fu was just bad, but had no controversy, that'd be fine. If there was a controversy, but it was at least decent, that'd also be acceptable. The fact it stands on both shitty camps is why it's landed here at the bottom of my list. And if you want even more details on broken crowdfunding promises and unshipped rewards, check out CVIT's video on the game in the description below. It's wild. Anyway, that's the end of the fun haha jokes of shitting on games, but I would implore those of you who have not yet seen it to check out my top 10 games of the year video, as those are the titles that should be getting the lion's share of attention, especially the indie ones. But are there any other top 10s you guys like to see? Send an email in the comments below or post a message to McMuscles@gmail.com. See y'all in 2020, I guess.